Extended trading on Thursday, Amazon shares are up by 13% after the business revealed second quarter revenue that was higher than anticipated and provided a positive outlook. For more on these headlines, we cross over to London, where we're joined by Lukman Otunuga, Senior Market Analyst at FXTM. Lukman, what's your take? Is the US in a recession or not?
Well, just happy Friday. Thank you for having me here. I do not have the heart to go against these three financial heavyweights. But let's start with the textbook definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of contraction. We saw the US economy contracted minus 0.9% in Q2 and minus 1.6% in Q1. However, as we know, the US doesn't use this definition. It instead relies on a determination by a group of researchers at the National Bureau of Economic Research. In defense to what Yellen and the other heavyweights are saying, there has been some bright spots in the US economy. Labor markets remain resilient, unemployment remains steady at 3.6%, and surprisingly, retail sales have rebounded despite the surge in inflation. So I think they're working on this model. What I can say is we need to keep a close eye on PMIs and other key data points over the next few weeks to months to truly, come to the conclusion whether the largest economy is in a recession. I think ultimately we'll get the answer once that Q3 report is released over the next 2 to 3 months.
Well, what do you make of the chip bill that's been passed in the House and heads to Biden's desk? Do you think it tips the scales as far as semiconductor production is concerned for the United States?
In a sense, there are 3 dimensions we can look at this from. Economically, as you said, the bill provides a whopping $52 billion in government subsidies, which is a welcome development for the US economy and local consumers, because semiconductors are used in everything from automobiles to high-tech phones. But politically, it's also a good win for Biden, especially with the elections around the corner in November. But geopolitically and socioeconomically, the Chinese embassy in Washington has said that it firmly opposes this. So this could create some headwinds down the road.
And Apple, Amazon results, what do you make of their performance?
Got a big figure in mind, 83 billion. That's how much Apple made in revenues in the third quarter, despite all these fears of rising inflation. However, looking deeper, deeper in details, net income fell by 10.5%. We know it's no surprise that Apple's contending with a number of headwinds, ranging from inflation to COVID lockdowns in China, which has hit sales and production. But on the bright side, it looks like this tech titan has displayed strong resilience against the unfavorable forces that are hitting the tech sector. I think ultimately, one thing we need to look at is Apple is widely expected to launch its new iPhone Model 14 in this fall. Well, it's not really likely to impact the next earnings. I think this is something that could be reflected positively in earnings the next year.
And so how are you seeing global markets, I guess, when we put all this together, US economic growth, Eurozone, and pretty much everything else?
If you remember, it was all gloom and doom a few weeks ago last time we spoke. Now, all of a sudden, stocks in Europe and US are set for their biggest monthly advance since November 2020, thanks to positive earnings and the fact that the Federal Reserve is not expected to be as aggressive on rates as initially anticipated. Midweek, we saw the Federal Reserve raise interest rates by jumbo 75 basis points, but, Federal Reserve Jerome Powell, struck a dovish tone and created a lot of ambiguity and a lot of uncertainty over what the future of rate hikes are in the United States. And I think this provided a welcome relief to equity markets, since we're seeing equities in Europe and the United States pushing higher. Overall, though, there seems to be a risk-on mood across global markets in the near term. It doesn't change the fact that concerns of a slowing global growth still linger in the background and could re-enter the scene next week.
And a minute ago, currencies. I think the US dollar continues to appreciate. I know it depreciated a little bit to the pound and the euro. What do you think?
Certainly. Have you ever heard the saying, what goes up eventually must come down? This is what I'm seeing with the US dollar right now. It's dominated the FX space in 2022. It's been primarily fueled by expectations of the Federal Reserve moving ahead with those aggressive rate hikes. But we saw how the dollar reacted on midweek when the Fed raised rates by 75 basis points, and markets expected the central bank to raise rates by only 50 basis points in September. With the way things are playing out, as the Fed, takes a step back with its aggressive approach towards rates, and fears start to rise over the large economy entering a recession, this could pull the legs from dollar bulls, and dollar weakness has the potential to become a new theme for the second half of 2022. Looking at the pound is on standby. We've got the Bank of England meeting next week. The same thing, we've got political uncertainty in the UK as we await our new Prime Minister. The Brexit noise continues to buzz in the background. I think the pound is waiting for what the Bank of England is going to do next week. And looking at the euro is weakened against every single G10 currency this week. We know with the euro is the widening divergence in monetary policy and the high levels of uncertainty still revolving around the geopolitics concerning Ukraine and Russia.
Lukman Otunuga, Senior Analyst at FXTM. Thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure having you to talk about the global headlines. Thanks, Lukman.